Welcome to the live stream. This is a surprise mini live stream today, coming at you from Austin, Texas. We are the DC Universe Online team. My name is Meps. I'm your community manager. This here is Nerd of Prey, your creative director. And joining us for the first time, we have Scribe Demon, your narrative designer.
Woohoo.
What's that? That's what we're going to talk about today. This
Great
stream is all
question.
about narrative design. But before we quite get to that, as you know, episode 27 is on the test server now.
Sure
so you can go
is.
play it, enjoy it, test it there. And we want to give you a little bit of information about that and the story. So there may be some spoilers here.
Yeah.
We're not going to go out of our way to like really reveal the story and thing. That's not what this stream is about. But there may be some spoilers.
Yeah, I actually want to come out and say, wow, you can't hear me at all. I'm going to come out and that sounds. Oh, I'm coming in his mic.
Oh,
I think that's what's happening.
Yeah.
So now
You're good.
it's
We got
stereo.
mic bleed.
Anyway, I'm just going to say spoiler alert because like we may not say everything, but we're not going to hold back. That sounds really weird. You guys let me know in chat if it sounds super duper weird. But anyway, we're going to talk about things. So if you don't want to be spoiled on any of the story, if you're one of those people, just stop watching. Watch it after you play.
Yeah.
Go away.
Come back in a month.
It's
or
not for
whatever.
you. But anyway,
It's all a dream.
Yes.
that's all.
Okay,
I'm done
so
now.
Yeah.
warning done. So story, obviously, narrative, character, world, all those things are super important in DCO. It's the DC universe brought to life, right? And in probably even more so in the Amazon Fury trilogy, parts 1 and 2, and now part 3. Nerd of Prey, why don't you tell us a little bit about why that's the case with this trilogy in particular?
Well, Amazon Fury has been one of the longest. Some people are like, "Damn right," one of the longer storylines since launch, and it actually started, happening even before launch with Wonder Woman and Circe going after each other. But anyway, it's a big deal. It was very well received by the community. It's one of the ones that we were able to write a lot of unique stuff because it's not highly branded. We've got Wonder Woman, we've got Circe, but basically the Pantheon, we were allowed to create new characters because they don't have. There are some versions of the gods in the comics, but they've changed over the years, so we were allowed to explore things a little bit more. So it's one of our more narrative-driven things. So it was a big deal, and it was very important that we got it right.
There isn't that one iconic version of Zeus or whatever in the comics. Like there's a Superman.
Yeah,
right?
I think Ares is probably the one that's most like that, which is why we kind of just did DC Ares.
Sure.
The original. Anyway.
So, Scribe Demon here is relatively new. He wasn't here for parts 1 and 2.
That's right.
So, how has your role changed from then to now?
Essentially, my role has changed from very similar to what he's going to talk about, narrative design. I used to be a systems designer on DCO back pre-launch.
Yeah.
Then I moved into more of an editor narrative design role, which meant making sure we hit all the the brand. We did everything like DC would like. We had good stories, good dialogue, even system messaging like names of items and things like that. And then over the course of the years, I moved into associate creative director, working with Jens, helping his vision come to life in the game. I liked saying it that way.
Yeah, that was
you have
good.
to drop my voice when I said vision. And then as he moved on to be executive creative director out at San Diego studio, I stepped into the role of creative director, which is kind of the gameplay, the vision of the game. I work with every team. I work with Jack. I work with the design leads, the gameplay, everything. And it simply there was just no time for me to write all the game anymore.
Right.
So I needed help.
And so that leads us to Mr. Scribe
Yes.
Demon. You've been here. You're relatively new. You've been here what? How many
How
months?
about 4.5 months?
4.5 months. Okay, that's actually newer than I thought.
Yeah.
I feel like you've been here all the time.
Well, that's because the last 4.5 months have felt like
Right.
That's true.
4
a year and a
years
half.
because we've been working so hard.
It's so much work. Oh my god.
Feeling like getting thrown in the deep end.
Yeah. So what we're going to spend the next couple of minutes doing is I'm going to ask you questions, and you're going to answer them. Some of these questions I gave you ahead of time.
Right.
Some of them I didn't. So,
Uh-oh.
You're assuming I read them.
well, yeah, I guess either
He's
way.
a writer, not a reader.
There you
Right.
go.
Who would read?
If I wanted to read, I'd go to school.
You listen to the
Right.
voiceover. You don't read the text.
Exactly.
No.
Who does that?
So, and the point is for everyone at home to see a little bit behind the scenes about what happens on a game team. Besides coding and the building the content. There's so many different people, and one of them is you.
Yes.
So let's find out who you are and what you do. So first of all, what is your position again?
I am a narrative designer / game writer, narrative
It's like,
designer.
Question mark?
What
I don't
do I
know.
do
What
here? I don't
I'm
remember.
definitely a narrative designer.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd say narrative designer and game writer.
And
You're
game
kind of
writer.
a jack of all trades. A lot of some teams they separate the two, but we just like to burden one person with all of that work.
There you go. So what does that actually mean? Narrative design.
Narrative design, so clearly there's a lot of writing involved, so a lot of storytelling, dialogue, and then on the other side of that, there's also a lot of technical stuff as far as, naming items, making sure stuff in the database is right, a lot of editing.
So all that builds into it, right? Like naming the items, it needs to fit the game and build the story and build the world. It's not in your face like the voice acting is, right? But it's still a huge part of it.
I just noticed I was doing that really annoying.
Yeah. Yeah.
My apologies.
Yeah, you were. It's okay. So that's cool. So all of the words are, at the end of the day, they go through you at the very least. Cool.
And a little bit about being a narrative designer
Yeah.
means also participating in planning a lot of the content.
Okay.
Like he's in there with the content and system designers when they're coming up with new ideas. One, so that he understands it, and to give feedback. You're always looking for the player experience,
Right.
basically. How does this feel from a player's point of view?
So that was kind of jumping ahead a bit to some of the questions I had. But I was going to ask you, what is the difference between directing the story from the creative director position and writing the story from the narrative design position? Like, where's the breakdown between like, okay, we're doing part 3. What does that mean? Right.
That was a tricky one. It was a really tough one for him to come on at the last. I'm like, okay, this is like really important, and it's the finale of 3 parts. Don't screw it up.
There was
kind of
no
thing.
pressure whatsoever.
But I guess really, it's more of a high level. Like we're gonna see this character, and we need to fight these guys, and we're gonna go to these places. And these they don't like each other, but what's the real reason? Why are we there? And that's when he comes in and he helps lay out like a skeleton of actually mine's more the skeleton. You put on the muscles, and then we get, I don't know why it went
the whole team
anatomical
builds the
then we
so
throw
it's
on the
really
skin.
a lot of the dialogue comes from this guy. Occasionally, and I've told this story before, occasionally some of the dialogue comes from our banter, just talking about it. And then Circe'd be like, shut up, Diana, and then we're like, oh my God, she'd totally be like that. And we write it down and we actually put it in the game and stuff like that. Everybody on the design team has a hand in the writing, but it's, it all has to come together. And that's his thing. And I'm, of course, there to give feedback still, but a lot of the words are coming from this guy now.
Cool.
And for this one, it had been, I jumped in sort of after everything had been planned.
Right.
So for me, it was, the skeleton was there and a lot was already there, so I just had to come in and kind of flesh it out.
Yeah,
Cool.
it was a tough trial by fire.
It was
Never a dull
nothing
moment.
like a small DLC to cut your teeth on.
Speaking of jumping in, how did you find yourself at Daybreak?
I've been in the game industry, I guess, coming up on 7 years.
Okay.
And I had been in another company and was looking for something a little different. And I'm a huge comic book fan, and I saw the position come up, and I applied, and
I guess that's how it works.
yeah, and I got this crazy writer's test, and I did it. It took me a week, and I was furiously typing at like Thursday night at 10 o'clock. But it was really exciting because I loved all the characters, and I was doing research by watching Justice League Unlimited, and I was
One of the
I can't believe
downsides.
this is work.
Yeah.
It's rough.
So then, came in and interviewed, and
Why narrative design?
why narrative design? I had been a writer before coming into the game industry, and have always been, I grew up reading comics, grew up reading novels, and what else do people read? I've always been
Bags
interested
of
in
cereal, boxes.
Yes, pamphlets.
Big interest there.
I've always been interested in story, even as a little kid. So that's kind of why I gravitated. And I love the games that I like the most are ones that are very story involved.
Okay, so towards episode 27, can you give us an example of just something you've worked on, or maybe a moment that stood out in what you did for 27?
I loved getting to write some of the stuff for the collections.
Okay.
Getting to really use a lot of the various actors' voices, or the characters' voices. The one that was the most fun was the Cersei one, where
Always
she's just talking about silly mortals and these silly gods. I loved writing for Cersei. She was incredible.
Yeah,
Right.
that reminds me, like, we had a big search to find the right person for this role. It was a very complicated and long test, and we had so many applicants. And what was important is somebody with a really good sense of humor. Because, I mean, I wasn't going to let this turn into dry, boring stuff. Gotta have somebody who knows how to find the spirit of Cersei.
Oh, blush.
Actually, that brings up a question I had that I was going to come to. There's a lot of different tones in the DC universe, right? There's brooding Batman, and then there's Wonder Woman, and there's Teen Titans, and there's funny and serious and sentimental and romantic, like so many different avenues of storytelling. How do you bring that to the game? Maybe you haven't had to traverse all of those yet because you've been here for 4 months and most of them working on Amazon Fury Part 3. But how do you bring that to game? And this could be a question for either of you.
I think you find the different elements that you can bring that to. We've got so much content between the duos and the alerts and the raids and the collections, and you just find where there's a serious tone that you need to hit, and then maybe you can counterbalance that in, say, the collection with something that's really funny.
Right. Like feats. We had a discussion about this recently. Like, feats, go crazy. Be
So
as
funny.
ridiculous as you want.
Punny as you can be.
But when we have these important moments, these moments of,
gravitas.
that is exactly the word. That's the word I was looking for. We need to make sure that players feel that, even when it comes down to reading the mission title and stuff like that. And I think one of the reasons that I picked this guy was he understands comic relief. The idea that you can have a really dark story and these moments of comedy are there to lighten it. Because if you just go darker, 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 and grimdark all the time, it starts being meaningless. You have to bring that humanity back through, like, Cersei saying something that makes you knee slap. That's levy.
There's nothing in pop culture going on at the moment that is getting way too dark and turning a lot of people off. Nothing.
The world is fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. Speaking of things that have been going on for a long time, sadness. That was the segue I was going for there. Probably not great. How did you jump into Amazon Fury? So obviously you start the next day. Nerd of Prey is like, come on, we have this giant storyline. It's 2 parts long, but really it's been here since launch. How do you get caught up in that? Or what was the first thing you did to get into that storyline?
I went and read the wikis, and then I went and played.
Yeah.
I jumped into our local stuff and got a bunch of cheat codes and went and tried to play through all the content as fast as I could so that I could get through the content. And then I looked at a lot of the design docs and just tried to get all the information I could. I watched just the cinematics, to see how those worked. 'Cause that's one of the fun parts of the job too, is getting to help the designers block out the cinematics. It's almost like you're directing a scene of a movie or something.
Okay, so writer, designer, director is really...
SJ. I mean, the Nerd of Prey did more of that.
Sure. Well, sure. You both...
He's getting there.
Cool. Moving right along. You kind of already answered this, but what are you most looking forward to players seeing in episode 27? Or is there anything they should look for that they might miss if they're not paying careful attention?
Oh, I always remind them to actually listen to the collections, because that's where the writers get really creative and fill in all the, I was going to say plot holes, but that's not very nice. But you get a little bit of extra story. You get backstory. You get funny. You get an insight into the characters.
Yeah. The Cersei collection is really kind of funny.
Yeah,
the Hades one is pretty good.
Yeah, they're great. Yeah. You should listen to the collections.
What is the best part about working in narrative design so far?
Telling stories. I mean, getting to work with these characters that I grew up on and, wished I could be a part of that as a kid, and now I get to be a part of it, and it's really cool.
Okay. What is the most difficult or strangest part of working in narrative design?
The difficult is definitely all the other stuff, all the detail-oriented. There's a lot of spreadsheets. There's
the item naming.
The item naming, making sure nothing's misspelled, or you've hit. If you had to change something in a one of the suit sets, you have to make sure you changed it for everything.
Question: does spell check actually work in the databases and spreadsheets you're looking at?
No.
Not so much.
I'm just curious. As a random aside.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
No.
That's too bad.
Working on that for the next set of tools we make.
So yeah, that's the most difficult thing for me personally, is just all that other stuff.
Cool. Okay. Now this is a question for both of you. This is the final question for both of you. And let's start with Nerd of Prey, actually. Can you describe what you do, your job here, in 5 words or less?
Wrangle all the cats.
Okay.
I'm like,
Scribe Demon.
yes, I did it.
Oh gosh.
Words are
Wrangle few cats.
That's stealing.
Right
there.
words.
Right words, wrangle cats. All right.
It's a good
We
thing
good
on
with
the
words.
nerd
We good
design.
words.
That's pretty good.
Make
Words with good.
Wasn't quite a complete sentence,
Nope.
but I guess I didn't specify
You
that it
didn't.
had to be.
You didn't
so that's
specify a
fine.
complete sentence.
All right. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
Scribe
this
Demon,
was fun.
Nerd of Prey. Thank you everyone out there for joining us. This has been a quick surprise mini stream for you. We might do a few more of these, so you might want to make sure you've liked our Facebook page or have followed us on Twitch so you don't miss them. We'll get the replay up on YouTube as well, so you can subscribe there.
Yeah. I'm really excited to get to introduce more of our devs to the community.
Yeah.
That way, I can just duck and
Make them do this so you know the things. Sure. And we should have some more faces for you to meet and see and learn about behind the scenes later on in the coming weeks as we lead up to the launch of Amazon Free Part 3 this November. Until then, keep playing DCO. We'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.